This is part 79 of C# tutorial. In this video, we'll discuss sorting a list of complex types using comparison delegate. This is continuation to part 78, so please watch part 78 from the C# tutorial before proceeding with this video. One of the overloads of the sort method in list class expects a comparison delegate to be passed as an argument. So at the moment, if you look at this list customers, this is a list of type customer objects. And if you look at this sort method, there are several overloaded versions of this method. And in the previous session of this video series, we have discussed using this overloaded version which doesn't take any parameters. We also discussed using this overloaded version which expects an object of type iComparer. In this video, we're going to discuss this overloaded version which expects an instance of this comparison delegate. So what's a delegate in C#? A delegate is nothing but a function pointer, meaning a delegate will be pointing to a function, and then when you invoke that delegate, it's going to automatically invoke the function to which it is pointing to. And if you want a delegate to point to a function, then the signature of that function must match with the signature of the delegate to which it is pointing to. So that's the reason why these delegates are called type-safe function pointers. And now, if I have to use this overloaded version, first of all, I have to create a function to which this delegate will be pointing to. And the signature of that function has to match with the signature of this delegate. So first of all, let's look at the signature of that delegate. So comparison of type customer. Let's right click on that and go to the definition. And if you look at this delegate, it is returning an integer, and then it expects two objects of type T. Okay, so let's copy the signature, and then within our class let's include a method. So this is going to be a static method, and it's going to return an integer, and then we are going to pass two instances of our customer object. Okay, and basically let's give this method a meaningful name. Maybe let's call this compare customer. Okay, so basically let's say we want the list of customers to be sorted based on their ID. Okay, so we have to tell that to the customer class. And how do we do that? Basically using this method. Okay, so return, so we have two instances of customer class here, x and y. So return x.id, and id is an integer property, and this integer type has already provided the implementation for compare to method. So we're going to make use of that implementation. So compare the id of this customer object x with the id of customer object y. And what is this method returning? It is returning an integer back, and our function is also returning an integer back. So basically this is the method which will tell how we want these customer objects to be sorted. Now the next step is to create an instance of comparison delegate. So maybe let's call this customer comparer, and to the constructor of this delegate we need to pass the name of the function to which we want this delegate to point to. So basically we want this delegate to point to this function. Look at this. This delegate expects a function to have an integer, return type as integer, and that function should have two customer objects as parameters. So here the signature of this method matches with the signature of this delegate, so we can pass the name of this function to this constructor. Okay, so the next step is to basically pass this instance to our sort method. So list customers dot sort, and then we are going to use this overloaded version which expects an instance of comparison delegate, and we have an instance here, so let's pass that. And then let's print the customer list using a for each loop. So for each customer, let's call it say in our list of customers, let's print their IDs. So c dot id, and basically this is before we have sorted. So let's say before sorting, and let's copy these lines of code and then print the customer list once again after sorting. Okay, so let's go ahead and run this now. Look at that, that's before sorting and this is after sorting. Okay, basically we want to change this text after sorting. Alright, so basically what we have done so far, 3 steps. We created a function and the signature of that function has to match the signature of the delegate, the comparison delegate basically. And then we created an instance of the delegate, and that instance is pointing to that function, and then we passed that instance as an argument to the sort method on the list instance. Okay, now there's a lot of steps there. Do we really have to do all these steps? Not really. We can achieve that using delegate keyword in just one line like this. So let's look at that in action. So instead of creating a private function here and then creating an instance of a delegate and then passing that instance to the sort method, instead of doing all that, basically I can get rid of this function altogether, and I can also get rid of creating an instance of the delegate here. And all I'm going to do is, what is this method expecting? It is expecting a delegate, so I'm going to pass a delegate here, and then this delegate expects 2 customer objects. Maybe let's call it C1 and another customer object C2. Okay, and then let's include the body for this delegate. And what should this delegate do? This delegate basically should return an integer. Using this delegate, we have to tell the sort method how to sort our list of customer objects. So we want to sort our list of customers using their ID, and we have 2 customer objects here. So we are going to tell the sort method how we want them to be compared. So return c1 dot id dot compare to with c2 dot id. So it's as simple as that. So let's run this, control F5, and look at this, we have the same output. But again, there's quite a bit of code and it's a little bit confusing. Okay, usage of this delegate keyword. Now instead of that, I can still simplify this by using a lambda expression like this. Okay, so let's look at using lambda expression. So instead of that, so obviously what we need here, we need 2 customer objects. So you can give it any meaningful name you want, maybe C1, C2 or X, Y, give it any meaningful name you want. So I have 2 customer objects such that x.id dot compare that with y.id. So it's as simple as that, a simple lambda expression. So now we run it, and look at that, we have the same output. That's it for today. Thank you for listening. Have a great day.